I wanted to talk to you guys about Summersalt and what's going on and how you're, how you're holding up and how your business is holding up in this situation. So for those of you who don't know, would you call it a fashion brand or is it just swim? How would you describe your company?
We describe Summersalt as a direct-to-consumer women's lifestyle brand. So really reaching women with apparel and really all things peripheral to her wardrobe, direct-to-consumer, having those e-commerce-based conversations with her, all the digital platforms, as well as really our own direct channels with the consumer.
And where does women start? Is that 18? Is that 16? Because I know my niece tried to buy some of your stuff and it would have fallen off her stick-thin 11-year-old body. So
we say our demo is about 24 to about 48, 50 is kind of where we are range. And of course, there are people who are younger who buy our stuff and people who are older who buy our stuff, but that's kind of our sweet spot.
Okay. And it's women-owned?
It is.
Does that make a difference in fashion?
I think particularly for a garment, of course, our initial garment category was swimwear, and we're building, around those concentric circles around swimwear throughout her wardrobe. But I think swimwear in particular is very highly emotional for the consumer. We always say it's her entire fears, concerns about her body tied up in one garment since she was 13 years old. And so I think being women-owned allowed us to see an opportunity that many might have discounted as a small market, when in reality there was a huge wide open wedge for us to go in and take market share.
So, yeah, I mean, I look at sort of the, let us say, impracticality of some of the swimwear that I saw, and it just seemed like that was wide open. So what specifically do the women love about Summersalt as opposed to, whatever Les Wexner is pumping out?
Well, I think number one is our fit. It's really based on 10,000 women's body scans, 1.5 million measurements together. And it's really not, a size 2, 6 foot tall model. And there's nothing wrong with being that, but it really takes into consideration her and a lot of other women like us, really. So it allows us to kind of optimize that fit. So they love our fit. They also love our tone of voice. We always say that Summersalt is like the best friend you're willing to take in the dressing room with you. Yes, women take best friends, sisters, mothers in the dressing room with them to say, what does this look like? Does my butt look okay? Is this too tight? Does the blue look okay? And that best friend who's willing to give you that honest opinion, but not in a negative way. She's able to say, you know what, I would suggest trying X. And she's also that best friend whose judgment you trust. You're saying, okay, she's just about cool enough that I know that if I listen to what Lori says, I'll have the perfect, outfit for the beach. And so we really think about that tone of voice.
So how is that conveyed? Because I'm assuming she's not taking a cell phone into the
dressing room. Yes, that tone is conveyed through language on our site. We never use words that would traditionally be used with swim in an over-sexualized way. That's conveyed through imagery. We really try to have as many models on our site as possible, different races, different sizes, different shapes. That's communicated through our customer happiness team. That's a group of incredible people who are super empathetic and supportive. And it's been an incredible thing to watch how vulnerable our customer is willing to be with us.
Has that changed your decision-making? If you're if you're looking at a new product, does that empathy influence design?
Yeah, I think we think hard about meeting our customer where she is in her life. And again, I think this goes back to being women founders and understanding our consumer innately is really important to how we build, functionality, comfort, and then the aesthetic into the product all from the very beginning. And certain garments you might prioritize one over the other, but at the foundation, we think about fit, we think about comfort, we think about design and the aesthetic and how it looks on our customer. And we also think about sustainability through everything that we're developing.
Okay. So you guys are based in St. Louis.
We are.
And you're a fashion brand.
We are.
Why are you not in New York? Like, why Why are we not zooming from Milan here? What's
Right now, Milan sounds fun, but
yeah.
So what's interesting, Jim, and we talk about a lot, when you think about the major brands, consumer brands that you've seen take off over the last 50 years, and I'm thinking the Nikes of the world, and then the Lululemons of the world, even the Spanx of the world. What's interesting is none of them are really coming from those coastal Silicon Valley, New York, Boston types of hubs. And we believe there's something magical about being kind of a merry band of outsiders, doing it your way, understanding your consumer innately, speaking to her from a unique point of view and doing it in a very consistent, authentic way and place, but still your way and not necessarily influenced by what's trendy. And that we are able to do that from St. Louis in the same way Nike was able to do it from Beaverton, right? And so that's one thing. And the other kind of interesting factor is that there's a lot of consumer talent here. So the combination is working in our favor.
Okay, so you don't have trouble recruiting talent. And I understand you have really cool offices.
yeah,
Very cool offices.
Someone who's interviewing us on this call.
But I mean, you're mostly a virtual company. It's mostly mail order. It's mostly virtual experiences. Do you have any stores?
Nope.
No stores. Okay. We have a very small wholesale business. It's really about collaborations more than it is truly wholesale.
So I would imagine that if you're totally virtualized as a business, that COVID-19 probably didn't knock you over as it has other businesses. But I don't know, because you're also like, I don't buy a swimsuit unless I'm probably going to go do something with it. So maybe you're in the travel industry.
So what's interesting, I do think many of us buy a swimsuit ahead of a planned trip. And so that's part of our thesis. But so in March, we certainly saw our business fall out from under us pretty much overnight when flights from Europe were canceled. And so as with many small businesses across the country, we moved very quickly to make some strategic changes that influenced our ability to both weather whatever that storm might be, and I guess we're still mid-COVID, so we don't know, but also to position ourselves to be able to offer the consumer what she needed at that time, and that was really comfortable pajamas. It was comfortable loungewear. It was thinking about what she wears on a Zoom call, right?
It's Netflix wear. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, from the waist up your business, and then you like shorts, right? Yeah, absolutely.
But at the same time, we knew that she likely wanted to have a normal summer. And so I would love Reshma to share the campaign that we worked through and developed and eventually executed on. But the good news is we saw the consumer come back to our pre-COVID plan pretty quickly. And so we're in the fortunate bucket of being able to really now execute on our original plan, and we believe have tailwinds around retail that are really, and particularly because we are virtual, not physical, that will be with us for at least 3 years.
So do you think it was a net positive overall? I mean,
look, how do you define that? Yeah,
it's a loaded question, but like, I have to say that it's probably been a net positive at Square, because it's forced us to really get a few things out the door that I think are going to lead us into the future. There's some businesses that are definitely benefiting from this. Is Summersalt one of them?
So two things. One, our move from swimwear to apparel was definitely accelerated. So we were fortunate in that we had already launched cozy sweaters, loungewear, pajamas in Q4 of 2019. We had also closed a round of funding, a Series B round of funding, and so that's very important too, which allowed us to be in a good position going into March and the COVID-19 shutdowns. And that move to apparel was already part of the plan, but like you said, I believe it forced us to accelerate the percentage of business that we're doing in apparel, while we're not forfeiting that swimwear business. So in the long term, you're right, I think it will be a net positive. But again, we're still in the midst of COVID, and we don't know how the virus is going to affect our business, particularly as we go through Q4 in the winter.
And
so you used a word that I always assume means fired people. You said strategic changes. which when I hear at some companies, I'm like, oh, that means you let folks go. Did you guys have to let staff go, or what when you say strategic changes, what was that?
So the biggest thing we did was adjust our budget, and I do mean significant swings in budget around marketing. We also shifted inventory buys down significantly, and then we separately moved anywhere we had hero fabrics that we could allocate from resort wear and swim to things like pajamas. We made those changes. So just to give you an idea, we had 50 purchase orders left in Q2 when COVID hit. I guess COVID was in Q1, but in March, but in Q2, we touched out all 50 purchase orders and canceled several, and either reduced our number or shifted to other garment categories. So really, really moving quickly. We were fortunate with our team. We were, about 25%, maybe 30% through our Series B hiring plan at that point. And so what we did do is, particularly on some of our customer support roles, we pulled back on the team very slightly. Everyone is back with us.
So you pulled back and you let people go partially? Is that?
Essentially, they were furloughed. We didn't call it a furlough at the time because we didn't know. We called it a layoff.
Yeah. Okay.
But we have brought them back on that side of things, and then we eliminated just a very small number of positions that essentially we felt like were not priority given what we were facing with COVID.
Yeah,
okay.
What's really interesting about our focus is always consumer first, like what is happening with her. So thinking about, Lori said, we want to meet her where she is. And what we mean by that is not just where she is physically, like right now she's in her home, right? Or she might be at someone's lake house, but also where she is emotionally. And that's something that we've really thought about as we craft the brand, and it's really authentic to who we are. And so early on in COVID days, we really thought about what we could do to help her through this time. So she wasn't necessarily maybe spending with dollars, but she did want to interact with brands who made her feel comfortable. There was a sense of reliability, a sense of authenticity. So we launched a text-based platform called the Joycast, which allowed consumers to text our number and we would share pieces of good news. So we used our customer happiness team during those days to be able to provide good news. So whether that was Italians singing from their balconies and having this incredible show of solidarity, or something that was happening in nature because all of us were inside, really being able to connect with her on that emotional level. And as we kind of look to summer, really thinking about where she is us and we are her, right? We're all, in the same storm, maybe experiencing it in different boats and in a different way. But in the end, we wanted our consumer to understand that we understood what she's going through because we are her. And so we launched a summer campaign called the Summer of Simpler Things. So instead of talking about, that bucket list trip to Tahiti or the amazing trip to Morocco or India, all of those things that we're not doing now, we really wanted to focus on those simple joys of life, which is cutting watermelon in your backyard, grilling a burger, kitties and dogs in the kiddie pool. So we really launched a summer campaign around that sentiment. And so again, we like to meet our consumer where she is emotionally as well.
Sort of interesting to think about the difference in fashion being sort of external versus internal, because if I'm dressing for other people, which I would imagine probably a third of the time I have to dress for other people, like if I'm going out to a meeting or something, or my wife catches me, then I will, have to change. And then on the days when I'm, sort of a free range person, I'll, whatever's sort of comfortable and at the top of the pile. But we've all had sort of this shift from internal to external, or I'm sorry, from external to internal. We're now not dressing for others as much.
And we're dressing for what makes us happy and what makes us feel comfortable. And I think swimwear is innately that kind of garment because you do want to look cute outwardly, right? Who wouldn't in a swimsuit? Yeah. But you have to, it is something that you have to feel comfortable in because it's literally the most naked you'll ever be in public as a woman. And so your swimwear innately is something that you're thinking about inwardly as opposed to outwardly in a certain sense. And so for us, it's really about establishing that trust with the consumer in a garment that's literally the most naked you'll ever be outside.
So has women's perception of how they should dress changed? And do you think that's going to be permanent in any way?
I think trends are always changing. So I think women are constantly trying new things and constantly evolving. I think societally, we are making huge strides towards the comfort economy and what that looks like. And we think about the comfort economy as being able to wear something in your house, and then the big adventure being the grocery store, or the big adventure being to pick up kids from your parents' houses. And I think what this COVID situation has done is accelerated that and made that more acceptable in the day-to-day happenings. Like maybe before I would not have gone to the office in, a jogger and a sweatpant, sweatsuit, right? I might have relegated that to my Saturday errands. But I think now it's perfectly acceptable to wear cute sweats to the office or, and be in there and actually be acceptable outwardly as well.
Did either of the two of you dress up for this call?
No.
Did you change? Did you get up this morning and put on that shirt?
Well, I'm wearing bicycle shorts, Jim.
Okay.
I will not get up and show the world my bicycle shorts, but see, this is a trend in women's fashion right now, is an oversized shirt and bicycle shorts. And I am embracing it fully.
Perfect. And Lori, what are you doing off camera?
We had a DoorDash delivery, so part of the work from home balance.
Awesome. So I got a fashion question here. Are masks going to become fashion? It seems like that's a place where it's going to happen, but I haven't seen it yet.
I think one thing when you think about what fashion is at the core is sort of the message we're sending to the world as a person. The choices we make reflect our values day in and day out. Whether we're aware of it or not, some of it we may be doing overtly, some not so much. And certainly I think wearing a mask fits that bill. We've been selling masks and donating masks. We've a lot. It's been amazingly in demand. We're out of stock at the moment. We have another shipment arriving the next, let's call it 10 days. And we're trying to do our part to really keep our region safe and our customers safe.
But do you think it's going to stick? In other words, do you think one of the things you will just have is like an accessory category called masks? We'll have, because there's some cultures, like particularly in Japan. Yeah, like masks is just something you wear when you're ill. And it's considered socially acceptable to be out in public wearing a mask, and people think, oh, well, that person's sick and they're not getting me sick. Now, over here, we've sort of divided into this political thing, and they should probably just sell, red masks and blue masks, or well, maybe they probably shouldn't sell red masks, but like blue masks, right? But there seems to be at least a lot of energy there right now. Do you think we're going to end up with that as one of the things that is in our wardrobe?
I don't know. We can't predict what's going to happen, but right now it's definitely part of that. And we see a lot of indie brands specifically coming out with a lot of masks that match dresses or masks that match headbands and, embroidered masks and other things like that. With Summersalt, we focused on what we always do, which is great fit and a really, functionality at the basis of our face covering. So they're like adjustable behind the ear. They have a nose piece. They have 2 layers of great fabric. They can be machine washable. So we really took a functional approach to our face coverings as opposed to just it being a fashion accessory. But I think I think till we have a vaccine that's proven to work at a large scale, I think it'll be part of our society and maybe even longer, since we've kind of, I think there was hesitation in terms of what was acceptable in public, but now I think all those rules are out the window.
Yeah.
I don't think I'm getting on a plane without a mask for
anytime soon.
Right? I think there will be times when we think we're in close quarters with people we don't know. Ventilation may not be the best, and so we'll do everything we can to protect ourselves from COVID-19 and every other virus.
Yes. So you had to make a very quick change in what you were manufacturing, and you are not a manufacturer, so you have subcontractors. I would assume they're overseas. How did
Mhm.
your supply chain hold up when, in the middle of this pandemic, you went through 50 POs and had to go, well, now to that, more here. Now we need to make pajamas.
Yeah, so one of the kind of brilliant factors that's propelled Summersalt to this point is our ability to produce on demand and to prototype on demand in a very quick kind of modular way. And so,
What's quick in your world? What is quick? Because I'm thinking of
for
Zara,
4 weeks,
H&M, and
4 weeks is quick, in
4 weeks is
opinion.
quick.
Yeah, and we
Okay.
can do faster in very small quantities, but at our scale, 4 weeks is about the timing. And because of our approach, all our designs typically and our fit are typically modular. We try to maintain hero fabrics and the ability to
Zero fabric.
it's a quality or a material that we like to use over and over for many reasons. One being the fit, the way and then the performance, as well as a sustainability factor. So that allows us to be flexible in our supply chain to reallocate where we go.
Okay.
It also means about having the right partners, right? They have to be flexible as well.
And who are your partner? Not I don't need company names, but what countries are you partnered in?
We definitely work with China. We work with Vietnam, Cambodia, South Korea, and many others. So
And that's because there's a large labor component in the products.
there's labor and materials. Yeah.
Okay. So, I mean, labor seems like the big thing because I would imagine you could get materials anywhere. But when I was making stuff for Square, what I noticed was that because the supply chain is so heavily focused around Shenzhen and the areas in China that do a lot of manufacturing, like it was super easy to get plastic resin there. It was super easy to get, gold plated leads. It was like all the stuff that I needed to make the parts that I was making electronics, of course, but like it was easy to get, polyvinyl chloride, is that the case now that the supply chain has moved so far to those countries that even if we totally automated the labor component, you wouldn't have the supply to do it locally?
In some cases, yes. I mean, we've been able to manufacture out of New York in smaller batches with the same components, so we can do it. One of the factors we found in March is that China went down, right? I mean,
Yeah.
our factories in China were completely offline, and so our partners there certainly were suffering economically, but we had a lot of orders that were delayed, and it was the fact that we were diverse in our supply chain, that we were working with multiple countries, that we were never without a supplier for our key items. And while we might not have had those deliveries perfectly, the exact date originally planned, we were really able to manage a huge amount of complexity that we're still managing to this day. I mean, we know that cases in certain countries are ticking up. We're seeing freight skyrocket, and we know that many of the freight forwarders take up extra space on passenger planes, and that supply has been removed from the pie, and so that's affecting us as well.
When you say freight skyrocket, I mean the cost of moving
Product
as
Product
opposed
and
to,
raw materials. Yeah.
okay, as
Finished.
opposed to the amount of freight shipping increasing. There's been a decrease and an increase in the price.
Yeah.
Okay. Do you think, and I'm going to ask the same question I asked before because I don't think I got a real answer. Do you think this is good for Summersalt? Like overall, COVID-19, are you guys going to be better than if it hadn't happened as a company?
So we would never say we wanted this to happen. That was not part of the plan. But what we would say is it's forced us to diversify our supply chain even further. It's forced us to enter categories already part of the roadmap, but to actually double down there. And so that, in addition, essentially we're moving beyond that concentric initial hero product in swimwear beyond. And then, really the biggest tailwind for us is the industry dynamics. And, some of the best forecasters in the country believe about 50% of stores may close in the next 18 months, which is just terrible for our economy and for those businesses. but that demand is not all going away, right? It has to, and it essentially migrate somewhere. And we believe that will migrate online to brands like Summersalt. We don't have the headwinds of dealing with leases. We don't have physical stores. We don't have we don't have a robust wholesale business. That's not our business model. And so because we have that direct relationship with the consumer already, she's experimenting with new brands, right? She's in this time much more interested in buying from online retailers. So long term, I believe this is actually a very big positive for us.
And also, we've accelerated what the retail economy was doing by 5 years. People who were not willing to adopt online shopping or were still spending a lot of time in stores were literally forced online, whether they liked it or not. And those users are learning quickly how convenient it is, how fast it is, what it entails, how much variety there is. So that's interesting as well. And I think from a team perspective, we're just really proud of how resilient our team has been. Lori and I are incredibly transparent with our team when it comes to decisions we're making, why we're making them, the numbers. Everyone on our team knows what revenue number we have to hit on a daily basis to be able to make our long-term goals. So everyone knows. And I think what COVID has done is made that even clearer to everyone on our team, because we clearly saw how something outside of us could impact us. And we clearly then saw how what each of us does could actually make a difference. And that's been really, interesting to see, and really building a team culture where it's about having each other's backs, essentially. And that's been actually one of the most interesting and beautiful things that has come out of this difficult time.
Yeah. Did you guys end up taking PPP money?
No.
No. That's awesome. So you just kept going.
We powered through.
Wow. So this has been fantastic. I guess the last question is, has it changed the way you think of working now? What I'm sort of trying to suss out now that we've, sort of halfway through this pandemic is, okay, we're learning a bunch of stuff. We're doing a bunch of new things. Change is being accelerated. That's all really positive. Some companies are going to die, but that's always happening. It's just probably happening faster now.
Yeah.
But then there's a question of what are the lingering effects, aside from, the stuff you do to get through. But for instance, Square has said that all our employees are able to work remotely if they choose to. Now, we've got a groundswell of people who just absolutely say, look, if I don't get back into the office, I'm going to lose it. And I can't be productive at home, please get me out of here. So, you don't think office is going to go away, but maybe the, 8 hours a day, 5 days a week trend is going to go. So what do you think is going to stick?
So that's such an interesting question. I think what Lori and I have talked about a lot is an opportunity for us to craft that. Now, we've been given this time to be able to figure out what actually works and what doesn't work. Whereas before, Lori and I would have said, no way, never can we ever go remote. That's not happening, because we really actually, as a team, enjoy being together physically, right? Like we like seeing each other's faces. We like laughing at each other's jokes. We like ordering pizza, all those things. And we would have just said, no, it's never happening. But sometimes when your hand is forced, you kind of see, and there's pros and cons to everything. There's certain things that happened better when we were physically in a location together. There's certain things that actually work much better remotely. We've seen that with team members.
What works better remotely? That's interesting.
Yeah.
We've not.
I think what works, so I think we all went through something so intense together at the beginning of COVID, where, we had to make those strategic changes, your favorite word, Jim, but we had to make these big changes for the business. And Lori and I, again, very transparent with the team. So we all emotionally went through that together, the entire team. We talked to everyone, we explained what we were doing, why we were doing it. We were really in it together. And when you go through something so emotional at the size that we're at, and during a very difficult time, we're not as big as Square, right? Everyone just has this added sense of responsibility, accountability, support. And I think that's been just amazing to see how our team has rallied together during a difficult time. And I think in the office, it's easy to take that for granted sometimes. You don't see someone doing X or doing Y, but in this remote environment, surprisingly so, we are seeing all those little things people are doing. People are voicing what they're doing. We're taking more time to celebrate what everyone's doing because we understand that that's harder in a remote environment. So it's somehow made us better at celebrating our team.
The thing that I found most interesting is, we just closed a Series B in December. We celebrated our third anniversary on May 23rd. So going into our 4th June with Summersalt. And I believe stage-wise that it's forced us, being remote has forced us to professionalize some activities,
Absolutely.
some communications that we would have had to do anyways as we continue to scale. It's just forced us to do it a little bit sooner. And so from that perspective, I think we've maybe matured as a company maybe faster because some of the communication that would have happened in the hallway is now being professionalized in a way that can be scaled a little faster.
Processes as well.
Wonderful. Wow. Okay. Well, good. I very much appreciate you guys taking a little time. As you know, I don't have much of a social media following, so we're not quite sure how these videos get seen, or I should say, I'm not sure how these videos get seen. But I made a couple of at the beginning, and they were surprisingly popular. And so the team that was promoting my book was like, "You got to do another one." And so I've been particularly looking forward to this because you guys have such a great perspective. And also, full disclosure, like we share office space, right?
Yeah,
So under normal
you're a
circumstances,
landlord.
I would see you guys across the hall, and it's great to just see you, even in a Zoom meeting. So thank you.
It's good to see. It's really good to see you.
Jim and Lori, I'm going to make you smile so I can post about your book too, Jim, on social media.
Oh,
So
yeah, we should do that.
Lori, you want to
Thank
smile?
you.
1, 2, 3. Oh, that's perfect. Jim, are you on Instagram?
Well, yes and no. So my book team put an Instagram account up.
Okay.
I've never used a Facebook product in my life. I've never used WhatsApp. I've never used Instagram. I'm friends with Kevin, actually, the founder of Instagram, but I'd never used his product, and I've never used Facebook. So, but just this morning, I was really proud because somebody has set up a fake Jim McKelvey Instagram account.
I better not tag the wrong one.
So look, I was so flattered that I'm like, that like somebody had thought to fake my identity on Instagram. So I've there's at least one fake account for me, and I think one legit account for me because the people who run this video, I think they will say I'm on there. But it's social media has been one of those things that I've never really been able to handle. I feel it's like cocaine. Just with my personality, I'm competitive enough and obsessive enough that I just really don't want one more thing that I have to deal with.
And don't get on TikTok, Jim. Don't do it.
Yeah, I can't dance either, so that's pretty much
I
it.
do have a question for you, Jim. Do
Yeah.
you have thoughts on LDU and how that in California and how that's going to play out for advertisers and platforms alike?
I don't even know when you say
Limited data usage,
Yeah,
the new laws in California.
Oh, I didn't even know what the acronym stood for, so I'm probably not the best person to answer the question. That disclaimer being said, I've never seen a case where the multinational corporations have not been able to outrun local laws. So they'll move their servers to Nevada or to Singapore or to some non-incorporated oil rig out in the Pacific, and figure out some way to store that bit that tells everyone you're left-handed out there. So I would imagine that there are probably meetings as we speak happening where they're going to try to circumvent that. These are very, very difficult organizations to rein in. I mean, heck, Apple just beat the tax police in Ireland. So I see those things as sort of politician saber rattling, but my concern, like I've never thought that legislation was a solution. I've always thought that you have to get economics involved. And the only economics in this case is you have to give consumers some meaningful value and control over their own data, which you can then tie legislation to. But unless you start the process, they're just going to end run it. So LDU, you know, Learning Disability University. I don't know what acronym would have normally popped into my head there, but I think it's probably well-intentioned. My guess is it won't work. But like most legislation, it'll probably cause a lot of pain for the second tier companies. You know, like if you've got operations in Germany, you just ship the stuff over to Germany in a weekend. But if your nexus is in California and you're unfortunate enough to have, only that as your area, then yeah, that's probably going to catch a lot of small companies. And one more reason not to be in California.
Who are we getting to move to St. Louis, Jim?
Well, I'm planning to do a huge effort with Cortex and WashU in some way.
Awesome.
I've got a couple of big plans for the city. And look, none of my plans are guaranteed to work, but we're just trying to build really cool stuff. So you go by Del Mar right now, we're building an outdoor amphitheater. Like
That's
Doug
awesome.
has
Amazing.
because like what and I think that's going to persist after COVID, like because outdoor spaces are fantastic to meet in.
Yeah.
And to have an urban outdoor space
That's awesome.
for crowds. I mean, you own the Bobcat, build the amphitheater. You know? So we're trying stuff like that. And then, my hope is to just spread the word that, well, I'll just give you the statistic. So Invisibly, the company that I've got that, sort of shares office space with y'all, we cut half our staff during COVID and we increased productivity. So we've had a huge improvement. And I think the talent base in St. Louis, as you say, is one of the things that's going to draw a lot of companies here. So I'm hoping to get ready for them. And any company that wants to come to St. Louis, I think we can show how the economics work really, really well. So
we're happy to chime in on that conversation because, Lori and I at one point thought, do we need to be in New York, to your question? But we've clearly decided you do not need to be and are committed to building the business here.
That's fantastic. Interestingly enough, that immunotherapy company that's got the cancer drug is based in St. Louis. And we're not a hotbed. Like we've got pretty good med tech because we've got a world-class medical school, but they were not affiliated with WashU's medical school. Like this was just some crazy group of people who just rooted in St. Louis and have been building this company. If this works, now they'll probably get bought by a big pharma company, but like, should that not happen? I'm hoping that they'll grow the whole firm here and they're committed to doing it. So, at the end of the day, I think one of the lasting effects of COVID-19 is going to be that it's broken up the clubbiness of certain activities, either physical clubs or in some case, I consider sort of the major cities clubby because if you don't have well into six figures as an income, you can't live in San Francisco. Like it's just darn near impossible to physically find shelter and food in that city without $100,000 coming through your bank account. And my one friend who doesn't have that much money lives in a space where he can literally touch both walls and the ceiling. I mean, he's a 45-year-old guy, and he's that's his entire world. Oh, and it's illegal too. Like it's not zoned or sprinkled or anything, but that's how he has to live. And I think that's just insane. So we've got these clubs that have been excluding people because they can't afford to be in a major city. And I think that's being broken up now. So it'll be more about the talent and obviously St. Louis has to compete, but it seems like we've got some of the components.
And hopefully we can get people to move here too, recruit them here.
Yeah. So again, if anyone watches this video and you want to come to St. Louis,
If you get to the end.
Reshma and I will show you around. You know?
Yes.
Yeah, seriously. Well, because I've seen it work. Like I've seen it work, and I've seen particular in like the Square office. I don't want to make a public statement here, but that it is our most diverse office, but I believe it is. And that diversity has huge benefits in a bunch of areas. And I think companies are going to start waking up to that stuff. So
Yeah.
hopefully they'll be in the loop.
Yep. Thanks for your thoughtful questions, Jim.
This is great, folks. Lori,
Enjoyed it, Jim. Take care.
Thank
so much.
you. Bye.
Bye-bye.